This is cycle 2, week 3, ages 10 to 11. And this is the winged lion, which is based off the image from the Book of Kells for St. Mark. And this is undoubtedly much more difficult than the one for ages 7 to 9. So just make your best judgment call. Like if you think your students can do this, that would be wonderful. If you just want to use the calf for ages 7 to 9, that would probably be totally fine as well. To do this lesson, you're going to have your upside down drawing of the lion inside of an envelope so the students cannot see the image. And you're going to have that envelope taped up onto the board. And next to it, you're going to have either a rectangle with the dotted lines across it that you've drawn, or you can simply print out another paper with dotted lines like your students have and just tape that up next to your envelope. You're going to be pulling up the paper section by section so that the students only see one part of the drawing as you guys draw it together. It's important that you go slowly and make sure that the students have everything as correct as possible before you move on to the next section. So to begin, I would pull up the first section of my upside down lion, and I would begin by talking through it with the students and walking them through how to draw the lines. So on my paper, we know that we're just drawing in this first section here. That gives me a good basis of knowing where to begin if I'm a student. Over on the left, what do we see? We see this kind of curved line that starts right about here. It goes up, over, and curves back down. Easy peasy. What happens next to it? Another kind of curved snake-like thing is happening right there. All right, so let's start it right here. Let's look at the line with our eyes. So really study that shape and then draw. It goes up and over and comes back down. And it's a double curved line. So I'll just go in there and do it twice. What happens next to it? We see that there is a line that connects to the one we just did. And what does it do? It goes up past the top of that snake, curves over, it's pretty big, stops, comes back the other way. It's an angle, so I'm going to stop at the angle, and then it basically just comes right down. What do we see happening in between this section? What kind of line is it? Oh, it's kind of slightly curved. Starts almost at that dotted line and curves up to that shape. Okay, what else happens? We have one last thing to do around here. Looks like this goes up. It curves back down to the dotted line and stops, and then curves back to that shape there and it touches. So showing students where things connect is a really easy way to help them have a beginning and end to their lines. And then what's happening in these shapes, what kind of lines do we see? First we see a curved line, and then two straight ones. And again, same thing. Curved and one and two straight ones. So as you draw, you can ask the students after each section what they think the drawing is of. And so let them have a guess or two, and then pull up the paper so that just the next section is showing. Now we have some points on the dotted lines where we see that other things will probably connect to. So that's starting to continue the roadmap of different lines we have going on. Here we see that there's a curved line that connects this one all the way around to that one. And again, it doubles our line. So we really do kind of have this long snake-like thing happening. But what happens here at this point? All right, let's study that line. We see that it goes to the left. All right, to the left, comes back over to the right and touches the next dotted line. What happens? Oh, there's a second one that does the same thing right next to it. That's right. We have some more lines happening over here. What do they look like? Are they straight? Are they curved? There's a straight one that comes over to the side and comes down. And there's a little line that connects these two shapes there. And what's happening here? Curved lines, and there's two of them. We get to double up. So it goes to that section there, kind of in that space that connected those two lines together, right there. We see two lines happening here. The one starts at this point on the dotted line, curves down and around kind of to where that snake is on the left. This one does a very similar shape, and it also comes and connects exactly to where the other one did. We're starting to see some legs happening. They might see that it's legs, they might not. Right below these toes is where this curved organic shape is. So we know that we can start at the toes, or let's not call it toes, but start at this shape here, come down, and we can do a point here, and that's where that organic shape is. It comes up and it has a curve, has three little ones, 1, 2, 3, and then comes back around, kind of like a flower, possibly. Below it, we have some lines. So we're going to come down. What happens? Oh, it curves out just a little bit. What happens for the next line? It is just straight. So I get to just have a nice, easy, straight line down. And then lastly, ask the students, what do you see in this section? Maybe like a rectangular shape, and it connects with, or it touches, this organic shape right here. So I can go up, know that on my map, those two places touch, come back over, and then go straight down. All right, what is it? It looks like, I would not even have a good guess. I don't know. We actually almost forgot these curved lines here, so let me go and do that. So if the students guess that it's a winged lion, I think you may owe them a candy bar, because that would be an amazingly good guess. For the next section, pull up the paper a little bit more, and now we're going to work on this area here. Over on this dot, what does the line do from there on out? And it goes down and a little bit to the left. Let's go down a little bit to the left. Okay, what happens at the end of the snake? It looks like it curves down and just connects with itself. Now at this point here, there's two lines happening. So let's start with the one on the left. It starts on this point, comes down and curves. Now this one also starts at that same point and curves even more out like that. So it creates this triangle shape between the two, just like that. At this point here, where these two lines converged at the same point, we have a line that comes out from there. So I'll start with my dot, curve out, and it kind of comes down. I stop, and it comes back and connects with that line right above it. All right, students, what happens here at this point? It looks like the line just keeps going down, but curves a little bit to the left at the end. So I'm going to go down and curve just a little bit to the left at the end. Now we have another angled line thing happening here. If you look here, you can see that at this point, if you go over, that's where the next line starts. So we're able to say, compared to where this is, I know where to put my next one. So I'll start with a dot here. And I see that that line goes up, curves, out. Now, the second one that connects with it starts down here at the dotted line right next to that one. So I can do a point there, curve out, kind of at an angle. So I'm going to stop, curve back the other way, and those can connect. In this section at the end of what we just did, there's another organic shape with all those different curves happening. So I'm going to study that shape. I say, it looks like it goes up and over, in, and then has three little humps, 1, 2, 3, and back down. The last thing to do is to figure out, these lines go somewhere, where do they go? And they simply just go down, just like that. And we want to stop when we get to this line here because it continues behind it. So I'm going to pick up my pencil and then continue it on the other side, just like that. All right, let's pull up the next section and do this area here. Let's start on the left and say what happens. This one simply continues out and back in a little bit. Now we have some lines. We think, where does it begin and where does it end? This one begins at this point and ends at this point, so we're skipping that middle line. The curve down and over. And this one just kind of connects right there in the middle. All right, we're going to skip over this complicated section here and go over to the other wing on the side. So what happens with this line? Comes down and around. This area here has these that kind of just connect to itself. And I just noticed that I did not do some shapes inside of this body on the last section. So right now I'll go in and just fill those in because I forgot to do that. So we see curved line number 1, curved line 2, 3, and then 4. And then we have this big curve that connects those two together. So hopefully I didn't mess you up too much by forgetting to do that, but there it is now. All right, now we can start thinking about what's happening in here and where they connect. So at this point here, I see that the line begins here and it swoops around and it ends right there. So I'm going to do my points for my little road map, swoop around and connect that. Now we are to this section that is quite a bit more complicated. For sake of making sure that things are hopefully in the right place, I'm going to start here at the dotted line with that shape and build up. So I can see that where this point is, I'm going to come down and do a mark. And that's going to be the beginning point for this curved shape. So I'm going to go over and in, around, and back in. All right, so that's kind of like a center point that everything else is going to build off of. And next to that, we have kind of like where this is, we have another point here. And it's going to go out and kind of around and do some crazy squiggles all up in there. And then there's one next to it. And then there's one next to that. Just have them really study the shapes. Like I said, it's going to get complicated. It's not going to be perfect doing these upside down. It's definitely going to stretch the brain a little bit. So just do your best. This line here is going to come out and connect with the side there. And then we just have these little negative spaces in between these squiggles here. And that's going to come out like that. So I didn't quite do that proportionally, and that's okay. Yours is not going to be proportional most likely either, and it's okay to have it imperfect. Not going to affect anything by any means. So once we have that section done with all this like organic curly-ish shapes, I want to go in. Actually, I need to fix this line. That actually would come out like that. I'm going to do this little curved shape that comes around and meets at the dotted line. And there's a last line that just kind of comes out from that shape there. All right, so like I said, that was the most complicated part, I think. And now we can pull up the last section. And what is it? It's a winged lion. And maybe that's not even clear to them. It's a strange looking figure, and we can talk about what it is after we're done with the drawing and explain it to the kids more. Between this point here, it comes down and meets with that point there. So again, we have our map, points A and B, and we can simply drive along that with our pencil and come back down. And that completes his left hand wing. Over on this point, we have the line that comes up and completes that wing. Now we have his head, which again, yeah, more complicated than the wings, but I'm sure we can do it. So let's start over here at this point because that's where his mouth is. When we study that line, we see that it goes back in, around, and past the point above it and stops. It's an angle. Now I'm going to come down and over just a little bit. These squiggly sections we're going to complete. So we see that this one continues out to the side and comes up. And this one continues out to the side and comes that way as well. And that leaves us just this little section here to pull that line down like that. For his ear, it's a straight line to the side, comes down almost to the bottom of the paper, and comes around and meets there. We'll just fill that in. So now we have this section here, and now we know where it goes. We have an ending point. So I'm going to go from here to there and complete that. We're going to do the second ear, and what kind of shape is it? It's kind of triangular. It's tipped to the side a little bit like that. So I'm going to do my kind of triangle shape tipped over and connect it. Lastly, before we do the eye, we have a curved line that separates the eye section from his mouth section. I see that it starts at this point where these two organic shapes meet, comes up towards the ear, and then around and over. He has a filled in dot for the nose, and then he has quite a large eye. So I'm going to do a point on either side. I want to make the eye nice and big, so I'm going to start with my width and make sure that's correct. And then I can fill it in with one curve and two curve. My parentheses inside, two curved lines. And then going back to the oils, we have another filled in dot inside of that. So once you're done with that, the student's going to flip it around, see what they did. You can explain more about the Book of Kells, why it's famous, what illuminated manuscripts are, and talk about the symbolism of the lion in that book. And then they can go ahead and color it with colored pencils or markers.